Hi guys, today we will look into the world's current energy state and how the globe is going into a massive revamp. Is this the Cape of Good Hope scenario or a disaster? Small riots and discrepancies have ensued in local food markets, fighting over food supplies as the shelves gain more room. Everything seems to be short in supply. Suppliers are suffering from huge order cancellations caused by a tight supply of almost everything, but the energy stays at the top of it. India is suffering more frequent power outages as companies try to save energy. Prices of coal are going to the moon like Dogecoin, and people are having a hard time living. This global economic crisis is caused by a shortage of coal and an increasing percentage of inflation. The world was stopped by the pandemic. And when the world resumes productivity, the energy companies could not keep up with it when the world started working again. This rebound meant that the world would not be able to keep up. Energy consumption has spiked as countries started moving out of their homes. Europeans are buying liquefied natural gas like gold, and Americans are spending about 1/4 of their salary on energy. Not all countries like India are getting more rainfall than usual, restricting the transportation of coals to major power plants. Know that the world is so closely interconnected that the butterfly effect is very real. A small change can hugely impact a later state. And it is known that most people who possess the power of prophecy study the butterfly effect to see which domino is to fall next. For example, a person in India does laundry and puts the washed apparel on the terrace to dry them. The air then steals the moisture from the apparels and travels away with more moisture in the air than when mixed with the clouds forms rain. The rainfall stops the transportation, and the power plants face coal shortages due to lack of transportation. Keep in mind that India is the world's second largest coal producer, but bad weather in coal mining areas have made it impossible for the employees to work in an already risky job. We might be divided by boundaries, but every human affects another human's life regardless of distance or boundaries. Some major impacts are known, like being able to live on Mars, while some are so indirect we can never even notice it. Let's go back a couple of months when America still was warning Ukraine, and Putin was shaking hands with Xi Jinping, asking Putin to not invade until the end of the Olympics. Europe, especially Germany, was facing a lot of issues with a shortage of energy. Gas prices were climbing up with no indication to stop. Putin made a statement here saying that Europe didn't order much oil during the pandemic, and now that the world is resuming, they are having a shortage. This is a key statement here. This statement forecasts everything that was to happen. Putin would then naturally trade their oil contracts with other countries. Now, when Putin already has other countries to supply oil to, how will they provide more oil and natural gas to Europe? Business is business. Well, Europe was caught in this trap, as America added that energy Russia was supplying is leverage and gives them control over Europe. But then the European Union had this policy to go green, which turned out to be a disaster. The climate crisis is a big issue, and the European Union has invested about 1.1 trillion for these clean energy sources. But that didn't work as expected. They had the North Sea winds for energy and Norway's dams, but unfortunately, there is no wind in the North Sea, and Norway is facing low levels of water, and it is dropping. You see, the UK gets 24% of their energy from the wind spinning their turbines, but a windless summer meant that they had to put that out of the equation. Now, to combat the crisis, Europe asked Russia for more energy. Putin then openly criticized them, saying, "Ha! Your go green policy has backfired and I can't help you. I have contracts to fulfill too." You see, the trick with renewable energy is that it is not constant, and with the terrain continuously getting modified, it would be very hard to judge the flow of any of this energy. I mean, solar energy will be useless if there is no sun, so renewable energy can only be a second option at this point, and the energy output will be very low. Now, look at the state of South America about 4 months ago, where most of the continents in this country are dependent on hydroelectricity. The droughts in these regions have resulted in multiple blackouts and low amounts of hydroelectricity. Now, since energy is scarce, it's natural for masses to switch to oil. Look at where it is now. Well, to give you an idea, Australia imports more than 80% of their oil, and they are hit the hardest with the oil crisis. This was all without Russia closing their taps for the world. Now, Russia is the world's largest oil exporter, sending more than 7 billion barrels to the world. Russia has the largest natural gas reserves, beating Iran with 7% more. Russia's natural gas is exported all around the world, and they export about 41% of their natural gas and oils to Europe. Now, Europe is heavily dependent on natural gas for everything from homes to manufacturing companies, and if they don't get the gas, then their economy will plummet. Now, this would be the downfall of Europe. This will affect their single market and impact the whole world in a lot of ways. Now, keep in mind that the European countries before the war thought that this state was negotiable, so they didn't seek other ways to obtain these missing barrels. Now, with these new things ensuing, people will look at other sources like Venezuela or Saudi Arabia for oil exports, and well, if they do manage to take the business, then the crisis might be short-lived. But with this, the European Union is forced to tighten their military power, which would lead to more demands on natural gas. There will be a high demand for everything, and so inflation will rise and things will never be the same. America will now have to focus on Russia too for any kind of peace-disrupting activity. Moreover, Russia will not import or export anything, and this will harm the economy. The Brexit policy that made the UK and Europe soar are set to dissolve, and they come together and fight this crisis. Russia will be on the blacklist, and even though China is supporting Europe at this point, they will be more leaning on Russia as they have a strategic advantage, and together they can be the most powerful ones in the country. China does not want a Cold War, but they won't try to stop it either. But this is a start of a relationship between China and Russia, as China become the only client, making the Chinese a VIP, giving the Chinese government more control over Russia. This means that China will control Eurasia and will be under China's control, from the Pacific to Turkey with Russia. The bottom line, the shortage in oil will give rise to demand and cause inflation. Now, if the West puts sanctions on oil and gas from Russia, 36% of their annual budget is gone. Now, as we said before, that natural gas is already getting notorious with an increase in prices. With sanctions on natural gas, it would affect the world for the worst. Now, the US is more than ready to boycott Russian oil from the borders, but the European countries might not be on the same page. This means that it may not have the desired effect on Putin, but Biden will impose the sanctions and put their economy at risk, while the European countries cannot do that. But there is a contingency plan in the process which could later ensure that the EU could do the same too. But this contingency plan is a little tricky, as it cannot be done country by country. If they do impose the sanctions, it would be for all of the 27 countries, and this could pose a major problem. As for Europe to agree with the US sanctions means all of these 27 countries need to be on the same page. But Japan and the UK might come with the US. So that is going to do it, guys. That is all we have for now, and we will be updating more in the next videos. Please subscribe if you're new here and hit that notification. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on the channel.